Redistricting. That's the conversation we're here to have today with our special guest, Tim Cywinski. Tim, remind the audience who you are, what you're running for, where your district is.
You got it. And thank you again for having me on the show today to talk about
Absolutely.
this important arms race with congressional seats that's going on across this country. So, my name's Tim Cywinski. I'm a reformist Democrat running in Virginia's first congressional district. That could change depending on a redistricting referendum Virginia is going on right now. It's suburban areas and a lot of rural areas, and it's just a very beautiful area that has not been represented by pretty much anyone but an empty seat, an empty suit in DC for a while. So I'm running because I want to take out that guy because he has done nothing but enrich himself, please his donors, please his party, even at the expense of his constituents. But also, I've worked in politics for 17 years. I know the rules, and I know the rules are dumb, and they are strategically designed to disadvantage everybody else. So, reformist, that means I'm going to change the rules of politics, and that way that it can work for you again.
Love it. Love
Oh,
it. Thank you. Okay, so because the midterms are this year and the Republicans are not looking great under a Trump administration, they have been trying every which way that they can to negatively impact the midterm elections, positively, I guess, if you're looking at it through the Republican lens. And a lot of that has to do with redistricting, right? So typically, you redistrict every decade. We are mid-decade right now. Redistricting has happened that could potentially gain 7 seats for Republicans across the country, 5 of those being in Texas, 1 in Missouri, and 1 in North Carolina. I say potentially because, it's always possible. I guess they could be turned into Democrat seats, but they're designed to try and be Republican pickups. To counteract that, what we've done is they passed a redistricting bill in California. So there's a potential 5 seats there that the Democrats could gain if they all go blue. Same thing in Utah, could potentially pick up 1 more seat in Utah if it goes blue. That leaves us 1 short, but there is a redistricting vote happening in Virginia, which could potentially add, is it 4? Am I right with that?
4 new seats, yeah.
4. So, Tim, tell us about the vote is coming soon, right?
April 21st, yes.
April 21st, so soon. Um, Very important. That's why we're doing this episode today, because the vote is so soon. We are short in terms of available seats because of the Republican shenanigans. These 4 would actually put us over what they have been able to pick up. But of course, Republicans are not going to give those up easily. So tell us about some of the stuff they're doing in Virginia right now, Tim, to
Sure.
try and shut down. Tell us, first of all, what does this redistricting look like? And then how the Republicans are trying to kind of push back against it.
Absolutely. So Virginia is trying to combat what the Republicans are doing at Trump's orders, and I think that's important for the whole story of this thing. Like they weren't doing
Mhm.
this before Trump said so. And Virginia is pushing back on that blatant power grab by saying, okay, we have 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans now. Let's redraw the maps. So it would be 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. So a pickup of 4 seats. The measure that they're trying to do is temporary. It's through the Constitution, but it's written in a temporary means. And it's not just, hey, we're waving a magic wand. Sorry, if you're a Republican, we're not going to give you a vote or a choice on the matter. They've done it the right way. They said, look, we're going to put this to a vote. If the people agree to it, then that's what we're going to stick with it. These maps will stop existing at 2030 for the next 10 years, for the decade, for the regularly scheduled gerrymandering.
Redistricting, right.
Yeah, and
It's
there's
terrible, right?
yeah, I mean, and that's part of the U.S. Constitution. So there's
Yeah.
some Republican talking points that say, oh, well, Virginia's Constitution makes it permanent. It doesn't. That's just what they always do. Look over here, don't look over here.
Hmm.
But the U.S. Constitution supersedes the Virginia Constitution. So even if it was true, it wouldn't matter. I digress from that. This is a weird election. We don't usually have elections of any kind in April in Virginia. This is something that we're trying to step up, make sure that Trump doesn't have complete unchecked power, because that's the strategy. That's the grand strategy that they have. And we
Hmm.
got to do our part. And the lines that were drawn are upsetting a lot of Republicans, a lot of people in rural areas. And I can kind of hear where they're coming from. I get that. It doesn't feel great to be gerrymandered out of your district. There's
Right.
two things that I think people should take. It's number one, you know, to act like this is existing in a vacuum is disingenuous. Like unless you have an official statement by the Republican National Committee or excuse me, the Virginia Republican Committee that says, "Hey, it shouldn't be done in Texas," you have no ground to stand on. The true
Mhm.
measure of conviction is whether or not you care about something, regardless if it happens to you. But they didn't give a shit when it happened in other states. They only started caring it when it impacted them. So they can touch grass with all of that. The second side of it is, though, if you are on the level of like the maps that are changing, I can understand as a Virginian why you wouldn't like them. But as an American, I think that this is wholly necessary. This is vital. This is crucial because it sends a message that we still have a democracy. And when someone tries to mess with it, there has to be consequences. When someone tries to mess with congressional districts for the sole purpose of consolidating more power, there has to be a response. If there's not a response, then there's nothing stopping them from the power grab growing and growing and doing whatever they want. We aren't
Mhm.
supposed to have kings in this country. I'm in Virginia. The last battle of the Revolutionary War took place in my state. This is our way of doing that again. So even though these districts, by the way, I hope your fans like me and are rooting for me for my congressional bid. They make it harder for grassroots candidates like me to win. But this is bigger than me. This is bigger than any one candidate. I wholly support it. I am campaigning on it. It is the beginning of my stump speech now because if there's anything I can do to rein in Donald Trump's blatant power grabs and lack of accountability, because his own party won't do it, and if they did, by the
Mhm.
way, this thing wouldn't be necessary, then I wouldn't necessarily, I'd have different thoughts. But at the end of the day, somebody has to
Democracy's
stand
at
up to this
stake.
bully. Democracy's at stake.
Yeah.
And we, the people, have to fight for it. So I'm glad that this referendum is up to the people. And I will tell you, it's probably 50-50 of whether or not it's going to pass. I think at the beginning, we were worried it wasn't. I was certainly worried it wasn't. The Democrats, I don't think, were expecting Republican turnout to be as high as it is,
Mm.
which, duh, of course it is.
Mhm.
But I think things have leveled out. However, that hasn't changed some of the sketchy tactics used by Republicans and dark money groups to try to change people's idea on it. I'm sure you want to talk a little bit more about that. So,
Before we do that, Seth, any questions from you?
Well, certainly when it comes to the state of Virginia, specifically, Tim, and you'd be the best to answer this, is that, right now they are holding the election, or pardon me, just the vote for this. But ultimately the state Supreme Court also has to rule on this. So can you tell me, is this something that people can vote on, and then the Supreme Court can all of a sudden be like, nope, we're ruling this out. What rule does the state Supreme Court hold in all this?
Seth, great question. And this is something that happens in states all the time. Is like a party, whether it's right or left, they'll sue, particularly in an area they know the circuit court judge will side with them. And so that
Mhm.
happened very early on in this process. The Republicans went to a place called Tazewell County where a conservative judge is, and he said, "Nah, you can't do this," because they needed more notice or there was just administrative bullshit, right? Um, and it's and that was overturned by the Virginia Supreme Court. And at least in California, the United States Supreme Court also upheld their maps. So at least they're being consistent because they did that for Texas and they did it for California. So every evidence says like even if this goes through, the the maps are going to stay in place if it goes through, and I think that the Virginia Supreme Court will allow it. And if that doesn't happen, then the United States Supreme Court will let it happen. Again, I can tell you it's a bit of a doozy for candidates because we're constantly in flux, running in one or two districts at this point.
Mhm.
But I'm at least if they have any semblance of keeping a consistent track record, this thing will hold. Doesn't mean it's going to stop the Republicans, but I think they're just going to waste their money, which I'm all about. Do it.
Yeah.
It's true. We love
And,
that.
and one other thing I want to say about that, and I'm just glad that that's the case, and the voice of the people are going to be heard on this, is because it is the voice of the people. People in Texas didn't get to vote on this. Missouri didn't
Exactly.
get to vote on this. California said the people will be heard. Virginia is saying the people will be heard. Also in Utah. So, this is how we do things over on the Democrat side. The
Mhm.
Yeah.
Republicans are shamelessly grabbing power while we are leaving it up to our constituents. And I'm just glad that we can be the proper example in a time like this.
Yeah.
There's very few times when people get a choice in policy. The reason I like elections is because it doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter where you're from in your state, doesn't matter what school you went to, your vote counts just as much as somebody else's. It's maybe the one equalizer we have in this country, and that's another reason why the other side likes to undermine it every chance they get and tries to make it harder for people to vote, like they're doing with the SAVE Act and like they're doing with a lot, well, what they've been doing for decades of just
Mhm.
sowing the seeds of doubts without any evidence. But we still have it. At least for now, we still have it. And that's something I take. Voting to me is an obligation, but it's also an exercise of what it means to be an American and to believe in equality and dignity in this country. And so if we were going to change the maps, it had to be at the choice of the people. And so I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we went through that route.
And so, to Seth's point, we are doing this. We Democrats are doing this democratically. We're giving the electors the option of whether or not they want to redistrict during during the mid-decade, which is very unusual. But the Republicans, of course, they want to put their foot on the scale. So, talk to us about what Republicans are doing right now to try and kind of create a smear campaign around this redistricting vote.
Yeah, I mean, this is what right-wing politicians do all the time, right? They start with a kernel of truth and then they weave a web of lies that creates a story that is not based in reality. Or I guess they just gaslighting.
Mhm.
The GOP is just the party of gaslighting, and they have been for a very long time. These are examples of it. I'm glad you're pulling up some of these mailers. What they've done is essentially take quotes out of context from both our governor and former President Barack Obama, who said things that were anti-gerrymandering, which writ large, so am I, and said like this they're telling you to vote now. Where
Yeah.
they and that's fine. That's politics. That's the game. That's the rule. But where they crossed the line is when they started to use these racist flyers that
What the
compared
hell
this
is
vote.
this?
Yes, yes,
Just
yes,
like Jim
Real.
Crow, they want to silence. Who's they, first of all?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
this is not silencing voices. This
yeah.
is actually, expanding voices, right?
Yes, and you can see at the bottom it says vote no and return your ballot immediately to ensure your voice is heard because we have a 45-day early vote schedule in Virginia. So they knew that this would be combated and figured out very quickly. So it's just like do this as soon as you can because that's what narcissists do. You got to be doing it
I mean,
immediately.
look at the photo. Is that the KKK?
Yes,
Oh
yes,
my God.
The
yes.
the the
These are
irony,
Republicans sending this out, by the way, y'all.
the
Yeah,
irony of
yeah.
the party that fought against civil rights
Hmm.
to now sit here and be like the people who were fighting for your civil rights, they're now trying to silence your voice by everybody voting for this
Yeah.
measure. Like,
This is
okay.
so exploitative and
Yes.
gross.
Yeah, and I think this should be a national story. And these aren't funded just by the GOP. It's also dark money groups that are trying to influence our elections, right? So like
Hmm.
we can't even trace back exactly who donated to this PAC that actually just was created seemingly overnight. And that's again one of the rules of politics that I think is really dumb that we can just do that and then they can hide behind a political action committee ad and not know who it
Yes,
is. But
agreed.
and like there's no justifiable reason why that's allowed, but here we are. And so this is what they do. And this is my point about politics and our economics and just the shittiness of our civic society is that when they know they can't win when the rules are fair, they
Hmm.
change the rules or they gaslight us into saying this isn't belief. And a point that I think is really important to make here is that a problem that is on the left that is not on the right is that we love talking ourselves out of a good idea. We love talking ourselves what is out of what is necessary.
Yeah.
And what happened, this is a real story. You're getting some insider baseball here. Is I kind of figured the Democrats wouldn't be great at the launch of this.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, my feelings were validated because I went to several Democratic committees, local committees in rural areas. So the people are really on the thick of the people who are going to have a huge voter turnout against this. And one of them told me, like, look, we asked the state party and the DNC to help us with talking points 3 weeks ago, and we haven't gotten them. And that was when early voting had already started. And I had to write my own talking points and send it to them, which again was the apparatus of no kings and how democracy is worth fighting for and how
Mm-hmm.
these things can't go unanswered. And that it's the reason that was necessary is because I've also talked to so many people who said, I have mixed feelings about doing this because I don't want to fight gerrymandering with gerrymandering. And this is what we do.
Right.
We stand on principle, we stand on our values, and that is good in peacetime.
Yeah.
But we aren't in peacetime. And I mean that literally and figuratively. And it's great to have our values until an ICE officer murders another person in the street. It is fantastic to stand on principle until we send boots on the ground into Iran and potentially ruin that country and send another generation to the Middle East to die for reasons of a vanity president or for
Mm-hmm.
the profits of the defense contracting industry. Like, make no mistake, if we don't have a counterbalance to Trump, those things will get worse. Everything that we've been complaining about, everything that we've been worried about, everything we've been screaming about for this entire year and a half that we've had to live under this regime that does not give one flying fuck about regular everyday people, but will enrich themselves at any choice they get, they have no accountability.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't like gerrymandering either. I think it's something we need to address so that this can't ever be used ever again. But at the
Right.
end of the day, it is necessary and it is right. So if
Mm-hmm.
people are trying to talk themselves out of it, I understand it, but get over it. This is the moment where we have to step up and fight back. And we might not like the way it looks, but it's necessary. Too much is on the line. Too much is at stake.
100%. Seth, can you believe those flyers?
Unreal. Unreal. As I said, the irony is just thick on this one that, you know, we know whose side, who was on which side in the civil rights movement. We understand that.
Yeah.
So this is crazy that you're coming over and saying that the Democrats who fought for civil rights are now trying to, you know, change or gerrymander with by asking you to vote. This would make sense maybe if this was a Texas type of scenario where the Democrats had just taken the reins and said, "We're changing it. We're not leaving it up to a vote. We're just going to do it."
Well, and
Well,
But
I
and
that's
that's
think
not
the
what's
it's,
thing.
and
happening
I
here.
think it's even more diabolical than that because I think what they're probably hoping is people are thinking that's coming from their Democratic
Yes, that's
leaders
it, Allie.
warning them against this gerrymandering. That's
That's
how I
exactly what it is.
interpret it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why it said vote immediately. Because
Yeah.
they knew if you don't vote immediately, then you'll be figured out that like, wait, this is actually from a sketchy source.
Right.
And again, the tactics, they have no shame. So the people behind the campaign for the redistricting amendment, they're called Fair Vote Virginia, and they did fairvotevirginia.com. The other side bought fairvotevirginia.org, which is
Mm.
a vote no campaign. I mean,
Wow.
and like that's again, when everyday people feel like the odds are so hard against them and like their
Mm-hmm.
voices don't matter because the resources on the other side is so well funded. And make no mistake, this is billionaires who fund right-wing candidates and right-wing and right-wing policy for decades. They're the ones who are able to flip into action this quickly. And
Yeah.
they do. And we just frankly don't have that on the left. And I think that's probably a net positive for us. But we have to acknowledge the reality that these things happen, which is why we should have been more ready at the jump to
Right.
be able to circumvent these things that I think I saw coming from a mile away.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
I yeah, and
I mean, we have the moral high ground. That's great.
yeah.
But it doesn't, at the end of the day, if we're not proactive, if we're passive, what happens are these tactics, this dirty pull that could potentially dupe a voter into voting against the redistricting, not knowing the real consequences of that.
And the thing is, it's super condescending. It's
Mm.
condescending. It's like they're pitying us to think that we're not smart enough to see through their bullshit. And maybe sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're not because we're
Sometimes
trying to
we're
live our
not. We
lives.
have Trump
Yeah,
a second time. So
yeah,
clearly we're not.
yeah. I mean, you know, I say
Longer
this all.
conversation.
I know it's just
Yeah.
it's one of those things where like when you have an economic ecosystem like we do, where you're doing back-breaking work all the time, and you just seems like you work your ass off and you can never get ahead, and then once you get a raise, it doesn't matter because inflation outpaced that so much. When people are desperate, you create the perfect ecosystem for hatred to thrive. You
Mhm.
create the perfect society where division can breed. And we haven't done enough as a party to address that. And we haven't done enough as a party to say, I see you in places that feel unseen. We
Yeah.
haven't done enough to say, I have your back whether you're working class or a person of color, like what have we really delivered for them?
Mhm.
And so I don't really blame people. I hate that Donald Trump was elected a second time on his third election. And I'll never understand people who voted for him for 3 times. But I do understand that how we got here is because we didn't do enough. A lot of people forget that at the same time that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected was the same time Hitler and Mussolini came to power. And
Mhm.
he knew if he didn't do something that showed that the government is supposed to work for the people and that comes through our economy and our dignity, then we're going to slip into fascism. We're going to become just like what's going on in Germany and Italy. That's why it's so important we did that. We had the power to do something in 2021 and 2022, and we didn't. We didn't codify Roe v. Wade. We didn't pass any of the semblance of like those social justice stuff we campaigned on in 2020. We
Mhm.
didn't tax the billionaires and bolster our funding for education and social services or our roads and our bridges. We didn't do anything that actually people could feel. We passed an infrastructure package where it took forever to build anything, and they called it a climate bill. But the only people who could actually benefit from that Climate and Inflation Reduction Act are the people who already had enough money.
Yeah.
82% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. We haven't done anything on that. And so, of course, when you have that, people aren't going to say, man, I wonder what's going on in the news today, because they
Mhm.
don't feel seen. They don't
Yeah.
feel seen anymore. So do I blame them for falling for mailers like this? Absolutely not. And it's a failure. It is an absolute something the GOP should and the people who back them should be ashamed of, but it's also something that I consider a failure of our party, the Democrats, the people I voted for my entire life. You have to do something. You have to do something, and you have to make it quick and reasonable and something that people can feel. And if we don't, tactics like this are going to work over and over again. But if we make things better for people in their everyday lives and show them without a doubt that we have their back, then they're not going to fall for it. But until we do that, until we give them something to believe in again, not just saying we're not Donald Trump, then maybe we'll win in 2028. But I
Yeah.
don't think we'll win in 2032. We're in this
Right.
endless cycle until we break the wheel. The way we break the
I
wheel is by
agree.
believing in people again.
I agree. And I think progressives have the ability to break that cycle, honestly. That's why we're doing this podcast, because you're not compromised. You're in it for the right reasons. You're not owned by lobbyists or corporate PACs or foreign interests. And if,
And if we save it, I'm giving YouTube full credit and Lance behind the
right,
camera. It's all you guys.
exactly. So sweet. But truly, I mean, progressive policies will benefit real Americans, those 85% living paycheck to paycheck. We just need an opportunity to prove that. I think once once the policies make their way to everyday Americans, if that could happen, right? If we have this progressive wave, Republicans don't stand a chance to win anything ever again.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah. And if I can be self-serving for a second, here's the
Mhm.
deal. Means so much that you platform us, the grassroots candidates. But there are a lot more people like me running for office than we have ever seen before in the history of elections in this United States, and
Yeah.
especially in the era since corporate PAC money has been allowed. We are all actively refusing it, knowing that some ways ties one hand behind our back. If you know progressive candidates, if you know people who refuse corporate money and the interest of special interest, please donate.
Mhm.
Donate a little bit, or if you can't donate, then volunteer. And if you can't volunteer, then just share our stuff online and help grow these things, because people just want a fair shot in this country. But if we
Yeah.
keep electing the same type of politician and we don't get a new generation of leaders and a new class of politician, then things are just going to stay the same. That's why I want to address the dumb rules of politics. That's why I call myself a reformist, is because if we don't address those underlying issues, we're just going to get another Trump or another MAGA acolyte, and we are not going to be the party I think we can be. I want us to live up to our potential again, and we're just not going to do it if we keep thinking that the same political playbook is the one that's going to work. It won't, and it doesn't.
Completely agree. Before we close out and do kind of a call to action here, Seth, any final questions or thoughts?
Well, I do want to talk about why Virginia is so important, because Florida is also gearing up to do this same thing, where, it's been projected that they could add anywhere from 3 to 5 Republican districts. Other politicians in the state say it's probably closer to 2 or 3 seats. So Virginia is so important, right? Because the Republicans aren't stopping.
Yep.
They're not stopping. And even though in 2010, Florida actually passed a law against racial gerrymandering, most of the state Supreme Court there in Florida has been appointed by Ron DeSantis. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because of that, it seems like that Supreme Court is willing to just completely bypass that law in 2010 to make sure that this happens. And so, Virginia is so important because we fortunately California was able to basically equalize or negate what Texas
What the
was able to
game?
do.
Right.
Virginia will be tasked with basically doing the same thing for
Mm-hmm.
Florida, so that hopefully this all just kind of turns out into a wash,
It
and
should
then
be. Yeah,
the giant blue wave does what it does.
Yeah,
exactly.
Seth, thanks very much for bringing this up. And on the board level, like the strategy level of what we need to do to hold Trump accountable and make sure we can take this country back to a semblance of dignity, there's also something I think that's important to talk about, because the Virginia's maps are written in a way where it's kind of incentivized to go to certain areas and not other areas. Now, our maps are already like that. This doesn't change much of that, but maybe makes it more obvious. Here's the deal, and this is why I was talking about that new class of politician that we need, is that we can have it both ways. We can change these maps and still have people who are willing to go everywhere, who are willing to talk to everyone. And it doesn't matter if the strategic electoral outcome is there. They'll still say, I see you, your voice matters to me. How can I fight for you? We can have those people. Like, we can look at this very myopically, like, oh, it's just going to be a Republican over here and Democrats over here. I want us to be in calling for more than that, something deeper than just our talking points. And that is people who say, it doesn't benefit me at all, and I don't give a shit. I'm still going to talk to you and see what you think I should be fighting for. Those are the kind of people we need to be looking for. So yes, let's get these, let's change the board, let's equalize everything, but also at the same time, let's be calling for better leadership. We deserve better leadership. Let's try to reimagine what we should come to expect from our politics. I think that's possible in 2026, but it's not possible if we allow the Republicans to cheat and give themselves more power.
Yep. All right. So, call to action. I'm talking to the audience right now. Guys, I want you to like and share this everywhere. Put your hashtags on there: Virginia, redistricting, vote. Tim, tell us, when is the vote? Where is there information where people can go to learn more? Like, give us everything you got.
You got it. So I have some on my website at VoteTimVA, some resources to figure out where your early voting locations are if you're in Virginia. You can also go to the Virginia Public Access Project or just virginiaelections.gov. Like, there are so many resources. Also, you've probably already had a text message or two from it. So just click on those links. They're not spammy. The final vote, it will be on April 21st. That's the last day of the election. Early voting is going on right now. I love voting early if you can, but if you like to be like me and go on election day, no harm, no foul. But also, please tell your friends to vote yes. That's what we really need right now. The Republicans are doing a great job of ground up messaging, and the Democrats are starting to get there, but they're still doing top-down messaging. That's not enough to win. That is not enough to mobilize. And the most trusted messenger to your friends is you. So tell them to vote yes, not fall for the bullshit, and call out these mailers, call them out for the racist, gaslighting pieces of material that they are, and just vote yes. It's necessary.
You
It's
can call them a
temporary.
piece of shit. It's fine. They deserve it.
Okay. All right, good. Yes. Yeah. So just don't let the pieces of shit win. Please,
There you
for the
go.
love of God. And if they do win, you're still going to be people like me and a whole bunch of other people across this country that are going to fight like hell and show that Republicans were worth voting for too. And if they disagree with us, so what? I'm still going to have that conversation with you. So
Yeah.
just vote yes in Virginia, April 21st. Please, 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 please. It makes it harder for me, and I'm still asking you to do it. Please.
Right. That part. So please, guys, share this everywhere. Share it, reshare it, all the things. I don't know all the words, but just blast it out, right? We want to make sure this message gets to everyone ahead of the final deadline for voting, which is April 21st. If you can vote early, get out there and do it. Tim, what a pleasure. Again, so excited to have you back.
You guys are the
And
best. This is the best. This is my favorite.
And keep coming back. There's going to be lots more to talk about as we go through this journey to the midterms. And Seth, final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, again, folks, like this is vital. This is vital. It is so vital that Virginia democratically step out and say we're going to, negate what Donald Trump is doing by force, anti-democratically. We got to step up, and fortunately, we got great guys like Tim in Virginia to make sure that we neutralize what they're doing in Florida, neutralize what they've done in North Carolina, in Missouri, and once again, not one of these states has asked their people to vote on these measures. It's shameful, it's pathetic, and it proves that they are scared of what's coming for them, the consequences of their awful policy, their policy that nobody wants, that nobody likes, that is incredibly unpopular. And so, y'all, if you know people in Virginia, if you live in Virginia, this is your duty. This is your solemn duty as a citizen of the United States. And if they do their part in Virginia, then I believe the entire country will respond like we've never seen before in these midterms, and we're going to see that big, beautiful blue tsunami.
Absolutely.
Seth, I need you to come down and campaign for this redistricting amendment because you got the juice, my brother.
He does have the juice. He does have the juice.
A little juice, little juice.
Little juice.
Hey man,
All right.
if we do no kings in DC, if it comes down to it, I'm Allie's not too far from there, and I'm gonna be all up in VA, bro.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get rid of it.
Let me know.
Yeah.
I'll be
Right.
up there.
Yeah, we're all gonna have to hang for sure. That's gonna be a night.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing would make me happier. And Allie,
too.
of course, you can campaign for it too, but you're busy doing these great interviews. So
Well, listen. I mean, I'll make time for that. I would make time for sure.
Thanks.
So
Thank you
listen, audience LOLers. Look, we're gonna start calling you that. You're our LOLers. If I can get it out, maybe.
Love that.
Share. Get this as far and as wide as you can. Tim, thanks again for coming today. So great to see you again. We're going to see you, I'm sure, I hope, many more times between now and the midterms.
Yeah, thanks for the knowledge, Tim.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you both. Lance, appreciate you too.
Yeah, shout out to Lance.